This is a commentary on a passage in Canto 22 of Dante's Purgatorio, and the passage too. Thus, use was our instruction there, and we took our way with less uncertainty because of the assent of that elect soul. They went in front, and I by myself behind, listening to their talk, which gave me understanding in making verse. But soon their pleasant converse was broken by a tree which we found in the middle of the way, with fruits that smelled sweet and good, as a fir tapers upward from branch to branch, so it did downwards. I think so that no one should climb it. On the side where our way was bounded there fell from the high rock clear water, which was dispersed among the leaves. The two poets approached the tree, and a voice among the boughs cried, "You may not eat of this food." Then said, Mary had more thought than the marriage feast should be honorable and complete than for her own mouth, which now answers for you. And the Roman women of old were content with water for their drink, and Daniel despised food and gained wisdom. The first age was beautiful as gold. It made acorns savory with hunger, and with thirst made nectar of every brook. Honey and locusts were the viands that nourished the Baptist in the desert, for which he is glorious, and as great as by the gospel he is declared to you. Okay, so my comments are that this is that in Dante there are terrifying or sweetest extremes. That's what Bertha was explaining. There's a hierarchy of exaggerations in Dante, and so by Elaine's comment there, I wanted to say that these maybe not hierarchy, but more of a an order. So, for instance, instruction exaggerated, which is at the very beginning of that passage. The instruction is the most instructive of that whole passage. The knowing the way of the poets Dante, Statius, and Virgil, then that knowing is the most certain element of that entire passage. Then you have the elect soul. That's kind of an extreme. These are all extremes, by the way. The poets Statius and Virgil are talking of making verse. You don't normally hear of shades, which is what they are talking. So I think of that as kind of supernatural, and that's extreme. And Dante understanding how by them, when he listens to them, his understanding is the most understanding part of that entire passage. You have the tree, which is a surprise, the most breaking into the matter, which they come upon, the most surprising in that passage. Tapering downwards is the tree. That's kind of magical, like, or not normally having you don't normally have that in nature. You have the high rock, it's sublime. It's the most high part of that passage. The clear water, which is most clear, the most clear part of that passage. The voice of the boughs, that's kind of strange. You don't normally hear of tree branches talking. Which who say you may not eat of the fruit. So that's the most forbidden part of the passage. Mary starved during the marriage feast. That was the most honorable part of the passage. Daniel despised food and gained wisdom. So that was doubly the most despised part of this passage I read, and that the most gained was Daniel's wisdom. The first age is the earliest part of this passage. Beautiful as gold, the most beautiful to see. Gold is the most beautiful to see, or that part that the first age is the most beautiful to see. Savory acorns, the most savory nectar of brooks, the most nectarous honey and locusts are the most nourishing part of this passage. The Baptist in the desert, that's kind of odd. Not in a way that it shouldn't be, but it just is odd to think of a Baptist in a desert. Glorious and great is the gospel. That's actually the greatest part in this passage. It is declared to you, the poets. That's the most declared to part of this passage. All this Penelope helped me with. So an example that I formulate use these better, worse, or less than equations would be greater than even the first stage is the glorious and great gospel of the poets, or what is declared to them. But the first stage is earlier than that gospel. The gospel came after the first stage, says Angel Grouchy. Gold is more beautiful than the high rock, but the rock is higher than the gold. I guess it's kind of like part of the waterfall, says Angel Honey. The way is most certain. The way that they're on is the most certain, more certain than the great and glorious gospel. But the gospel, though, however, is greater than the way, says Angel Amy. And finally, more gained than the certainty of the knowledge of their way is the wisdom of Daniel. The instruction is more instructive, that's at the beginning, than the gaining of the wisdom of Daniel. But the understanding of how to write verse is understood even more than the instruction from his master Virgil. That's Dante's understanding. Angel Grouchy helping it down.